You're listening to Wildlife Control Consultant, where we provide research-based information on all things related to vertebrate pest management. Hi everyone, Stephen Vantassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing another episode of the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Hey, glad to have you on board. Hope you had a great week. Mine was quite busy. I had to do get some training out in Chicago area, and it was great. But a 19-hour day is kind of tough. It started getting my age. But anyways, we're glad to have you here on board. Do take a few moments, if you would, to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you can be notified of future updates. You can also reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. If you're wondering what kind of a podcast you got into here today, well, I deal with technical information related to wildlife damage management. That is, creatures that have a backbone. We do deal with insects from time to time, but only insofar as they relate to wildlife and the control of wildlife. All right, well, what do I have for you today? Well, the training I went up to was the Xcluder University, and one of the things they have is what's called these escutcheon plates. Now, that may be kind of a weird term for you, but it's the plate that goes around a pipe that enters a wall. You know, no matter what you do, you always make the hole larger than what the pipe needs to fit in. That becomes an access point for rodents and other pests that can enter a facility. Well, Xcluder company created these movable escutcheon plates, and I wanted to talk a little about them for you, or I should say adjustable escutcheon plates, and I wanted to talk a little about that today. So this is what it comes in. I looked it up online what it costs, and I think these are like $14 a piece, and I'm recording in early 2025. So this is what it comes in, so let's open it up. And you have some attachment material here in a Ziploc bag. So there's going to be some instructions for you. And these are going to be some items used to anchor. Let me try to make sure you can see that. These are for anchoring, some anchoring purposes, and also some caps. And we'll show you what those are for here shortly. You also have some Xcluder fabric that if you need to sort of kind of fill in a little bit of a gap there. And then of course you have 2 screws. And then the escutcheon, the adjustable escutcheon plate itself. Really cool. So let's point out how this works. So notice how it comes apart, which is just amazing, right? There's some clever people in the world. So notice as we pull it apart, it comes into 4 areas. Now I'm using this medicine bottle as a stand-in for my pipe. So I'm going to place that in here. This will adjust from a 1/2-inch pipe to a 3-inch pipe, and that's external diameter, not internal diameter, external diameter. So from edge to edge, right? So I think this is more like 1.5 inch width, so this should work fine. And so you basically, here's my pipe, and you have to sort of line things up. Voila. Absolutely amazing. Okay. And there you go. Now we have our escutcheon plate placed around. Now you say, well, Stephen, I see some gaps here. Well, let's talk about those. That's where these little clips come in. You bend off these clips and place them, and you cap them over these edges here. Let me kind of pull this apart so that you can see it a little bit better. So this little spot here And this spot here is where these sort of end caps go in. You say, well, how do you secure it in place? Well, this is where you have your screws, screw holders, and these would be placed in like so. If you didn't need those end caps, you would pop that in, and then you would place your screw. I don't want to take it all apart because I want to keep it together. So, and then you would place your screw in to that screw holder here. And then you could also use adhesives if you needed a tighter fit. Perhaps you're wanting to try to keep bed bugs out of an area, or perhaps you need to kind of keep some insects out. You can use other things, but this is how it will come to you. Now you're maybe wondering, what are these lines for? I hope you can see those lines. This little line here and this little line here. Well, sometimes you may have two pipes that are too close together, and so this won't fit. Well, what these lines tell you is that you can cut, you can take a grinder or a hacksaw and hack off all the way to this particular spot here and all the way to this particular spot here. Let me try to be sure you can see that. This little line here, it's a groove that's been left, and the manufacturer, Xcluder, put that there so you would know the farthest you could cut this down, and making sure that it won't interact with another one. So it's just absolutely, I'm just fascinated by it. So if you do a lot of pipe work, pipe work area, this really simplifies what you have to have in your truck, because you know that this will handle any pipe 1/2 inch width to 3 inch width. And so it just gives you another tool in your toolbox that's kind of clever for you as well, in terms of these escutcheon plates. And of course, if you need to use some fabric, you could put some fabric around the pipe if you needed to. This is Xcluder fabric. Those of you that have involved in Xcluder fabric is stainless steel, I call them stainless steel shards, embedded into a plastic mesh that rodents can't chew through. And so what you need to do is you can take a screwdriver and wedge this into place. Now it's important that it's tight enough in an area so that a rodent can't pull it out, right? So it needs to be tight. And the beauty of it, of course, stainless steel, it's not going to rust. You don't want to use steel wool. And this is just another product that they've kept in there for you. Now I'm touching it very lightly. The reason is you're supposed to wear gloves when you're handling, because those stainless steel shards can cut you up if you're not careful. So I'm being very handling this very gingerly here. So if you're looking for another tool in your toolbox, and it's called the X plate. Let me pull out those directions here for you. It's called the X plate, and it's produced by Xcluder. I'm not being paid for this. I actually took training at Xcluder University. That's how I came across this. They handed this out to the students that attended. I was one of the attendees. Worth the time. I just wish personally, I'm not going to give too much. I'll probably have another podcast where I'll go a little bit more in depth. But just saying offhand, I would have gotten even more out of the training if I was doing the field work that you guys that are listening to this are doing. And so I think if I had more field work experience, that would have enabled me to appreciate even more of the training that I took there. But it was eye-opening. It was a pleasure. Very, very well done. I'm really glad I took it, even though the flight back, I went all day with the training, and then I took the flight back to Montana, and nothing's close in Montana. So it was a long day for me, but that is not Xcluder University's fault. Very wonderful training. Highly recommend it for people that are involved in exclusion. If you're trying to keep rodents out of structures, Xcluder University. But again, I'll probably do another podcast on that. So the escutcheon plate, just to remind, so you get your instructions, you get some Xcluder fabric, you get two screws, two anchor screws. In the middle here we have our two anchor holders, our screw holders, and then caps if you decide not to use. If you don't need your anchor screws here, you can then just cover those openings that I pointed out earlier with these caps that you can place into the location so that you can make sure that you're not having a larger gap, because remember, rodents, mice can use a 3/8 inch gap. And then of course you get your adjustable escutcheon plate called the Xcluder, the X plate by Xcluder. Really cool, about 14 bucks, something you may want to check out because it's something to have in your toolbox and it's not going to take up a lot of room. And then of course you're going to have your markup on it. So look professional, solve the problem. Exclusion is the way to go. When we're dealing with rodents getting inside of structures, that can go a long way for us using less rodenticide and getting better control of rodents inside of a structure. So check out your X plate, your escutcheon plate from Xcluder. Well, you've been listening to the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast, where we deal with all things technical related to wildlife damage management. Thanks for joining the show. Do take a few moments, if you would, to subscribe to the channel. If you have questions, comments, yes, even criticisms, perhaps you have a show that you would like to have done in the future, perhaps you'd want to be on the show, definitely reach out to me. Love to hear from you. wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. I think there's a lot of ideas out there that we need to make more known out to the wildlife control community. Well, that's it for today. Again, this is the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Take care, everyone.
This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Vertebrate pest control is an inherently dangerous activity involving risk of bodily injury to you, others, and/or property. Vertebrate pest control also involves legal issues, so be sure to always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and/or other control methods when controlling pests. Wildlife Control Consultant LLC, Stephen M. Vantassel, or their affiliates are not responsible for your use of the information provided here. Always consult a qualified and appropriate professional before employing the information provided here.